Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whatever time of day you are listening. Welcome back to Mostly Accurate. I am your host, Monica, as always, and I'm happy that you're here today. We have another true crime episode for you. I'm pretty stoked about this. Not that, it's like a sunshine and rainbows episode, but I'm just excited that you're here and that we just seem to be going down this true crime path. I don't know what's up, but if you're enjoying it, stay tuned. We got a lot for you. This week has been crazy. I officially have a 1-year-old, which is pretty wild. I know a few weeks ago, oh gosh, I don't even know if it was a few weeks ago. I think it was about a month ago now. I was telling you guys how I had a breast milk necklace made and I finally got it and it's super cute. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, I'm really excited about it. And it actually came on my son's birthday, which marks 1 year breastfeeding. So I think the timing worked out perfect and I'm really happy with it. So if you guys are interested in it, I think it's a really cool keepsake. So for all those other moms out there, speaking of turning 1 year and breastfeeding, I had his 1 year appointment this week also, which I totally forgot about. Until I got a text message saying, "Hey, you missed your appointment," while I was at work, to which I kind of just was kicking myself and spiraled into a mini panic attack. So that was fun. But hey, who can keep all this shit on track? I know I can't, obviously. So we ended up rescheduling it for later in the day. Everything worked out fine. I was talking to his pediatrician, like he's great, like 50th percentile, everything. The boy is growing. He's great. He's smart. And then, she told me that I should just be done with like breast milk and formula. And I was just kind of like, he's not ready for that. He's totally ready to have milk. Like he tried chocolate milk, but I don't know if like I'm ready to be done breastfeeding. Also, I don't know how to stop. So, yeah, that's another challenge. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll do an episode on that. But let's just talk about what we're talking about today. Let's get to the point here. All right. So let's just dive in to today's episode. So today we're talking about two cases, which forces us to, I guess, kind of question like what justice really looks like and who decides when a life should end. Trigger warning for today. Today's episode is dealing with murder and suicide. So if those are sensitive topics for you, please maybe skip to the next episode or a previous episode, or I don't know, or just keep listening. I'm going to try and get through this with like a serious tone, but also just like keep in mind that I have like nervous laughter. So if I crack a few jokes to just kind of lighten the mood, like I'm not trying to like lighten the story. I'm just trying to, keep us rolling through this. Okay. So first, basically, we're going to head to Tennessee, where we're going to meet Christina Gale Pike, who is set to become the first woman in the state of Tennessee to receive the death penalty. And the last time this happened was like 2 centuries ago. So her crime shook the nation back in 1995, and now it's like nearly 30 years later, and the countdown to her execution has officially begun. So we'll look into the brutal murder that she had committed and why she's on death row, and then the ongoing debate over whether she deserves, mercy or the ultimate punishment of death, basically. And then from there, we are going to turn the case over. Actually, this is another cold case. We're going to turn it over to Hulu's new documentary, Death in Apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg. If you haven't seen this one, it's 3 episodes long. It's not like a really long drawn out documentary or anything. And this is basically about a young woman who was found in her Philadelphia apartment, and she had 20 stab wounds, and yet the medical examiner ruled it as a suicide. So we're going to just like unpack the details of that and all the red flags and explain how her family is still fighting for justice. So these two cases, two very different stories, but they both raise the same uncomfortable question when it comes to justice. Do we ever really get it right? So yeah, well, let's get into it. Today, we begin with a story that shocked many. Tennessee is preparing to carry out its first execution of a woman in over 200 years. That's 2 centuries, guys. Like the last time this happened, like people were wearing like powdered wigs and getting medical advice. Like, have you tried more leeches? Like this is a long time, 200 years. Like crazy. She is currently the only woman on death row in Tennessee. The date which the Supreme Court has set for her execution is September 30th, 2026. If everything proceeds as scheduled, this will mark the first historical milestone in Tennessee history. First woman executed since 1820. And this is actually the fourth in the entire state's history that a woman has been executed if everything follows through into fruition. So let's talk about this. This case dates back to 1995 when Christina was 18 years old. So what she did is that she lured a 19-year-old friend, Lean Slemmer, into a wooded area around the University of Tennessee's agricultural campus. So they have like a separate campus. And both of these women, they were both students at the career training program called Job Corps. Pike, I guess, had grown jealous of Slemmer because she thought that she was interested in her boyfriend. And then basically, just to break this down, what followed was like super horrific. So, Pike slashed Slemmer's throat with a box cutter. She struck her with a meat cleaver. She carved a pentagram into her chest and then crushed her skull with like a slab of asphalt. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. Later, she allegedly had kept a fragment of Slemmer's skull as a trophy. And then she was like showing it off to her classmates and stuff. Like, wow. Like I kept a shoebox of like concert tickets and doodles from like notes that I used to pass in high school, which totally like ages me. Yeah. Before text messages, kids, there was note writing. And then you got to fold them into like cool little football things. But yeah, she kept a piece of the skull. Like that's not like quirky. That's like restraining order. Not cool. But let's just keep going here. So in 1996, Pike was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Her accomplice, Daryl Shipp, received life with the possibility of parole, and a third person who testified against Pike was given probation. So, nothing was all said and done at this point. So her time in prison was not quiet. In 2004, she was convicted of attempting to strangle a fellow inmate, which earned her an extra 25 years on top of her death sentence. So what's going on today? Let's fast forward 30 years later. We're about a year out from her execution date. Her case is, I guess, still going through appeals or something. Like her defense attorneys are making arguments against the execution. One of the arguments being that her youth and her background at the time of the crime. So she was only like 18 years old. And she actually had a history of child abuse, neglect, and a lot of trauma. And their second argument being that her mental health, is not good. Like evaluations have diagnosed her with bipolar and post-traumatic stress disorder, which legal teams can argue basically at this point that this should make her ineligible for capital punishment. So yeah, I mean, it's the justice system's version of like, I guess, would you rather, like mercy or punishment at this point, except this round has, I don't know, fewer laughs and nobody's like eat a spoonful of mayonnaise. Like, I don't know. This one's tough. And I guess why does this case matter so much? Because if it's carried out, Pike's execution would not only like rip open a painful chapter in Tennessee's history, I guess it would prompt like new debates across the nation about capital punishment, mental health, and justice. Because where do we draw the line with I guess, I don't know. Murder's never okay, but if somebody's mental health drives somebody to murder, it's a tough one. Like this one's a tough one. And Tennessee has a long history with the death penalty. And, through the recent years, executions have slowed down. It's because of like legal and moral and technical challenges and stuff. But Pike's case really like forces us to, confront these difficult questions. Like, how should the justice system weigh age, trauma, mental illness, and, all that other stuff into the most severe cases? And then are these crimes so horrendous that they demand death, or do like mitigating factors always deserve consideration? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, what role does mercy, I guess, at this point in our day and age have built into punishment? I came across this story last night as I was polishing up this episode, and I thought it was really, really interesting because it provokes a lot of questions for us to really think about. So as the clock ticks towards execution date, Tennessee faces a rare and uncomfortable reckoning. Like what does justice look like when both brutality and brokenness exist in the same story? A tough one. But our next case is going to ask us a very different question. So, what happens when justice never seems to begin? This is the story of Ellen Greenberg. So, let's move on over to Philadelphia, where this young woman was found dead in her apartment. And despite 20 stab wounds, her death was ruled as a suicide. 20 stab wounds, multiple to the back and neck. A medical examiner calls it homicide, then changes it to suicide. 14 years, Ellen Greenberg's parents have fought to prove that their daughter didn't kill herself. And today, we're gonna break down Hulu's Death in Apartment 603, what happened to Ellen Greenberg. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the snowstorm of January 26, 2011. So our story takes place on a Wednesday in the state of Philadelphia. Ellen is a beloved teacher. She was sent home early this day because of this really bad snowstorm that was coming in to the area. The schools were shutting down. Everybody's trying to get out of there, trying to go home. Ellen had this coworker named Bruce, and he's helping her wipe off her car, which I guess his commentary in this documentary said that it took about an hour long. So Ellen calls him on his drive home. She's stressing out. She's like really worried about grades or something like that. Like she was having like a rough day. And then her buddy Bruce texts her best friend, and basically while on the phone call is like, dude, your bestie is crazy, which is just like a weird text message to receive from somebody else, but whatever. So the bestie then receives a phone call from Ellen, and she doesn't answer. And that's the last time that anybody heard from Ellen Greenberg. So what's really going on here? This documentary is 3 episodes long. I had never heard of this case. I guess it was kept very, very quiet. And I guess I kind of know the reason now why it was kept really quiet, because there was a lot of like back and forth with the Philadelphia Police Department and, how I guess just like from start to finish, how this case was handled. So basically, later that night, after Ellen makes that phone call, she goes home, no day, fun, and she's just in the kitchen, she's cooking, and her boyfriend at the time, or actually her fiance at the time, he's like, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym. So he goes to the gym. Okay. Fast forward. Fiance Sam comes back from the gym and the door's locked, like he's locked out of the apartment. He's like banging on the door. He's getting super loud, like loud enough that the neighbors are peeping out their door and like, what is going on there? Like, are they having an argument? Like, he's just pounding on the door, let me in, what's going on? He's texting Ellen at the same time, like numerous text messages. He's frustrated, so he goes downstairs to the concierge and he's like, dude, I'm locked out of my apartment. You got to let me back in there. And the concierge is like, I can't, you guys, I can't leave my post. Okay. That's not something we can do. I can try calling Ellen. He's like, I've tried calling her. I've been pounding on the door. It's locked from the inside. Like, I can't get in. She's not responding. And so goes back upstairs, same thing, comes back downstairs and he's like, you got to let me in the door. And again, concierge is like, I'm not doing that, man. Like, I'm sorry that you're locked out, but like, I'm not going to let you in. And so Sam gets pissed and he's basically, I'm just going to knock the effing door down if you're not going to help me. My personal take when watching the documentary and some of the footage of this moment, Sam's stressed. Okay. Like, I totally get that he's stressed in this moment because I would be too. The way that the door is locked. So it was like one of those like hook latch, like pushover things, not like one of those like I don't know, hooks. It's like one of those like security things where you just like push it over, whatever. I get why he's stressed. Okay. Like, he's stressing because she's not answering. She was in there. It's locked from the inside. So he knows that she's in there. So like, I get it. He just finished working out. He wants to get inside. So I can get why he's desperate to get inside because it's like maybe he's scared that something had happened to her. Like, what's going on? Like, why isn't she answering the door? But from that moment on, shit just hits the fan. So at this point, Sam knocks down the door. He's had it. He's sent multiple text messages like, where are you? Open the door. But these text messages, they're very angry text messages, okay? Like, they're not just like, honey, open the door. They're more like, open the effing door right now. You're going to regret this. What's wrong with you? Stuff like that. So these aren't just like super nice text messages. These are like major red flags. So Sam, he busts the door open, he gets in, and he finds Ellen on the floor of the kitchen, stabbed, bleeding. It's just a disaster. So he immediately calls 911. And this is kind of where a lot of questions start to arise because of this 911 call. And I was going to play this 911 call for you guys, but I could not figure out how to legally obtain the audio to stream it or play it during my podcast. So I do encourage you to just like Google Ellen Greenberg 911 call and listen to that since I cannot provide you with that within this podcast. But I'm just going to kind of go off a little bit of red flags that I found in the transcript for you. So he's on the phone with 911. He gives them his address, kind of frantic, but kind of like calm at the same time. He's trying to explain that she's bleeding and, they're asking like, where is she bleeding from? And immediately he's like, oh, I can't really tell. I don't see nothing's broken. I think she's bleeding from her head or something like that. But there's blood everywhere. He tells 911 and then they're like, do you think she may have fallen? Like, do you know what happened? And then he immediately says, she may have slipped. There's blood on the table and her face is purple, which is really strange. So then like 911 transfers him to like the fire department, like first responder dispatch or something like that. And he explains to them like, I was just downstairs. I was working. Oh, I came up and the door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about an hour, I decided to break down the door and I see that she's on the floor with blood everywhere and she's not responding. So then they're like, is she breathing? And then, he's like, I don't know. So they're like, look at her chest. You need to stay calm first off, and you need to look at her chest. Like, is it going up and down? So I think it's really weird at this point that he can't tell if her chest is going up and down because when he comes in initially on the phone call, he says that Ellen is sitting upright, which, okay, so she's sitting upright. You could clearly see her chest. But anyway, like, let's just continue. So they're asking, can you see if her chest is going up and down? We're going to need you to do CPR. And he's kind of like hesitant at this point. He's just like, okay, like what? Like, I guess I can do that. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, and then they're like, are you willing to do CPR over the phone? He's like, I have to, right? Like, really, really weird thing to say. So 911's like, you need to get her like flat on the ground, like, and then bare her chest. Like, can you get her shirt off? And he's like, I can't get her shirt off. There's a zipper. And then suddenly, oh my God. And he starts freaking out. And he's like, the zipper's stuck and she stabbed herself. Like, how did you not notice that there was a knife sticking out of her throat, or not her throat, but her chest in the first place? Like, I don't know. This whole call is super weird. It's only 5 minutes long. I really encourage you to listen to it. Call continues. 911 is saying, like, we need you to leave the knife in her chest. If she's not breathing, like, did you leave it there? And he's like, yeah, I didn't touch it. And like, he actually almost like, I swear it's like he's laughing at this point. Like he makes like a laugh, like, of course I didn't touch it. Like, I don't know. This whole call is like super bizarre. And then the call continues until first responders show up. They're asking more about her age. I just think it's just really strange that the first conclusion he makes is that she stabbed herself. So police arrive. They're inside apartment 603. Ellen is sitting upright against the kitchen cabinet. She's been stabbed 20 times. 10 of those were to the back of her neck. There's a knife in her chest, and just like the whole scene looks completely wrong from the start. There's no defensive wounds. Her hands are cold, but her torso is still warm. There's bruising all over her body. And, like the scene just looks normal. There's like blueberries being rinsed in the sink. Her laptop's open. Like, literally nothing indicates that there was any type of like suicide prep happening in this moment. And yet Sam is telling the police that she killed herself. He immediately, is telling police that she was struggling with anxiety and depression and all this stuff. And the detectives are just like, suicide. Like, okay, yeah, let's just not question like the evidence and like everything that's going around here. They didn't even tape off anything or like rush to the scene like super urgently at this point. And I think the reason being that when to my understanding is that there was a pretty like high crime rate in the city, at least for like the police departments. I think they were saying there was just lots of like murders and stuff that police were responding to. And I think the fact that Sam on the phone made it seem as though this was a suicide, or at least he painted the picture of a suicide, is the reason that police did not, I guess, rush to the scene or treat it like a crime scene. So they get done. Everything's like getting all wrapped up and stuff. And the next day, Melissa, who is the apartment manager, ends up, I guess, alone with Ellen's body until the coroner arrives. And then later, she's the one who escorts the coroner with Ellen's body to the coroner's office. So the next day, she gets a call from Sam's uncle, like super weird, right? He asks if he can come in, even though the apartment's like completely covered in blood and everything. And he wants to get some stuff for Ellen's funeral. Just going to pause right there for a second. This is bizarre AF to me. So why is Sam is the fiance, okay? Sam's uncle comes to collect some of Ellen's things for the funeral. All right. Why aren't her parents doing this? Why isn't an immediate family member coming to do this? Why is Sam's uncle doing this? Mind you, fun little fact, Sam's uncle is an attorney. So little weird. Maybe he really was gathering some of Ellen's things for a funeral. I don't know. I just think it's a little bizarre. And the reason like everything's happening so quickly is because I guess this is really common in Jewish community to kind of like move really quickly with funerals and stuff like this. So yeah, that's basically like why there was such a short time frame from when the police ruled it as suicide up until he arrives at the scene. Back to that day. So Melissa, the apartment manager, is like, I don't know what to do. Like, so she calls the police. And she's like, hey, like a family member wants to come and gather some things, but there's like a crime scene basically in the apartment. They're like, yeah, that's fine. And they suggest this crime scene cleanup company to, come and clean everything up. But here's the thing. Melissa is super smart. And the reason that she's super smart is because after like the crime scene people come and like they clean everything up, because mind you, this is a suicide. If this was treated like a homicide, there's no way professional crime scene people would come and just sweep the kitchen up as if nothing happened. So she decides that before like letting Sam's uncle in there, she's going to videotape the whole place. And she's going to videotape the whole place because this way she can have proof that like nothing was missing, that wasn't there initially. You know what I mean? Like she just wants like video evidence that whatever was there at the time before letting Sam's uncle in and some other man. So there was actually two men, not related to Ellen, not immediate family. Just gonna keep that little note out there. So she videotapes everything. They stay like 15 minutes and then leave. And then they never like spoke really with Melissa. Melissa kind of just like sat quietly and they only took a few things, and one of them being a laptop. Why are you taking a laptop? I guess the laptop thing just doesn't make sense to me if you were gathering a few things for her funeral. And what things would they have gathered for her funeral? Like, I mean, if somebody I don't know is sent to gather things for my funeral, like, what are you even going to do? Like, first of all, who's picking out my outfit? You know what I mean? Like, why is Sam's uncle and his buddy, like, in charge of this if they didn't even know in that way? Like, who trusted them to be like, yeah, let's send these two to gather her most valuable things or things that are sentimental that'll remind us of her for the rest of eternity. Super bizarre. Super bizarre. So while all this is happening, Ellen's body is at the coroner's office and a medical examiner rules this as homicide. Our crime scene has already been cleaned up because the police gave the okay to hire a professional crime scene cleanup company because they had initially ruled this as a suicide. And this is where all the problems begin. Like they're literally at Ellen's funeral when this breaking news hits the actual news during her funeral. Like, crazy. That's just crazy to me. So, like her whole family is literally grieving the loss of what they thought was a suicide. And all of a sudden, their whole world is just flipped upside down. So let's look at the timeline of what happened here. I kind of took some notes a little bit as I was going through the documentary. And then I wanted to kind of compare it with like some of the things that I like personally like noticed versus like what was like really happening and things that they didn't touch on. So the last activity on Ellen's computer was at 4:46 p.m. Sam says he leaves for the gym at 4:50 p.m. And the gym is in the same building, I believe. At least that was my understanding. And Ellen's estimated time of death is between 4:50 and 5:27 p.m. All right. So in that window, somehow Ellen stabs herself 20 times, including in the back of her neck while she's washing blueberries in the sink. I just find it really strange. Sam is sending multiple like angry text messages within seconds of each other. To let him in the apartment. He's blowing up her phone. Hello, what's going on? You better have an excuse. Like he's impatient. He's angry. He doesn't really seem concerned at this time. And then there's like a weird like a 13-minute gap between one of his angry text messages and the next time that he texts again. And then, there's like this huge unanswered question. If this building has like 20 something cameras and it's like super secure, why don't they have any footage of Sam at the gym, like going to the gym or leaving the gym? It's just footage of like Sam going up and down an elevator. There's no cameras in the hallway. There's just red flags everywhere for me. I mean, let's talk about the background. Like, let's go to the beginning. Ellen was engaged to Sam. Like, she was planning her wedding. You know what I mean? Her cousin Debbie, a month prior to Ellen's death, said that it seemed like she had become withdrawn, like that she had lost her light a little bit. Back to Sam telling the police about her anxiety and depression. Ellen had been prescribed Klonopin as well as Ambien, which is an anti-anxiety drug and then a sleep aid. But her psychiatrist swore that there was like no confrontations with Sam or anything like that, because I feel like this whole case is just like screaming, look at Sam, like just the whole thing. Digital searches on Ellen's computer later showed that there was like quick suicide searches, but in 2011, like forensic experts never found those. So I don't know. Like I said, the whole Sam's uncle taking the computer, I just kind of feel like the chain of custody of this laptop was just completely tampered with, 100%. And then back on the like toxicology report, it's just weird because there weren't really many public details, and it almost just makes me wonder, was there alcohol in her system? Because if there's a mixture of Ambien and alcohol, that's an extremely dangerous combination, which could have, I guess, tilted the case more towards suicide, and it could have been an accidental suicide. So let's fast forward 10 years. Her parents still do not believe that Ellen killed herself. And mind you, the medical examiner changed the ruling from suicide to homicide, but then it went back to suicide. So what happened here? Because I just can't understand it. So then, the DA starts looking into the case. But he can't find the case files, because where is Ellen's case? Okay. Is it in the homicides file? Is it in the suicides file? No, he finds her case next to some holiday decorations. Like, I can't explain that one. Some people's organizational skills aren't the best. So let's talk about this, because the medical examiner originally ruled Ellen's death as a homicide. But how could it not be? You know what I mean? Like 20 stab wounds and many to the back of her neck. And after some mysterious medical examiner's meeting, which included the medical examiner's office and the Philadelphia police, the manner of her death was changed to suicide. I don't even know how that happens. I think it's just kind of like they want to just get the case closed and just be done with it, it seems like to me. And like years later, one of those examiners even admitted that, if he hadn't been presented with certain information, he would have never leaned towards suicide. So it sounds like this new information that was presented really just swayed the like head examiner to now flip it back to suicide. Like, I've never heard of that before. Suicide, homicide, suicide. Make up your mind. Or like, is there something else going on? And I think that's what Ellen's parents are trying to get to the bottom of. Like, why is this happening? And actually, during a deposition, one of the group of examiners, who was I think she was like a neurosurgeon or something, that she said that the wounds like on the back of her neck, like towards her spine, looks like they were inflicted after death. Okay? Because there was no hemorrhaging. So Ellen was already dead when she suffered stab wounds. I don't know about you, but I think if I'm dead, I can't stab myself anymore. Speaking of just stabbing, the amount of effort it takes to physically just like stab, like I don't think just like most people would have any type of energy in them to stab themselves. Wouldn't? I mean, that hurts. I feel like that probably would hurt like terribly. I can't imagine, like, you get a paper cut and you're like, shit, that hurt. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to stab yourself 20 times? it doesn't make sense to me. This whole case is just like a hot mess. I can't believe that, like, even in the beginning, it was ruled it's a suicide. And now, we're 10 years out. There's no crime scene. There's some weird, shady meetings happening between the police and this medical examiner's office. And I don't know. I don't know. It's just bizarre. So let's just talk about the aftermath of this whole situation, I guess. I mean, Sam eventually moves on with his life. He, in the beginning, has contact with Ellen's mom, and Ellen's mom is very firm on the fact that Ellen did not commit suicide. Yet Sam is always just like, well, are you going to get past this and just kind of like maybe think about like how you can help others with mental illness and whatnot. And Ellen's family just isn't having it. Sam eventually moves on. He remarries, or I guess not remarries, but he gets married, he has children, and then basically to this day has no contact with Ellen's family anymore. And still stands by his claims that Ellen did commit suicide, and that he never acknowledges ever, like at all in any conversations going forward, that her death was a homicide. He just keeps sticking to the narrative, his original narrative. For the Greenbergs, it's just an endless torture. Like every agency, even the governor, just publicly declared that this was suicide, and they just continuously just kept getting let down. And that was just like such a big bummer. There was an investigator named Tom Brennan and a journalist that he had hired on this case that just like also can't seem to let go. And that's wonderful for the Greenbergs. Brennan, this investigator, noticed things that other people didn't, like the dried blood inconsistencies with her position. The body had clearly been moved. I mean, there was just so much, the video camera footage and all the contradictions, with the medical examiner's office by 2021 and all of that changing. Now we fast forward to 2025. The case is back up for review on October 14th. 14 years later. There was just a lot with this case that that just bothered me, just the way that it was handled. And one of the things that I guess I just don't understand, again, I'm going to bring it up with the camera footage. There's so many cameras in this building, but the only footage that they were able to retrieve after the fact was from the elevators and where the concierge was. I guess I just don't get it. Like there's so many minutes where Sam is missing in that camera footage, and he could have been upstairs banging on the door, because it was corroborated by a neighbor that they did see him. He could have been somewhere else. Could he have actually been in the apartment? And I don't know. Is there stairways? Was there somebody else? Was there another entry? Like, is it possible to accidentally like shut a door where it locks over like that? Like there's so much that wasn't investigated, and it just really sucks that we're so many years out from the crime scene. So much evidence that was gathered and mishandled. And then just like the toxicology report, I just find it really interesting, like how I don't know, like, was there alcohol in Ellen's system? Because I feel like the suicide theory probably would make more sense if so, because if Ellen, for example, had had a drink, so it's a snow day, she is on anti-anxiety medicine, she is on sleep aids. If you're mixing like benzos with sleep aids and alcohol, that's a lot for somebody's brain chemistry to handle. And it could be possible that, maybe she was having a glass of wine while she was cooking. I have no idea. But then that caused some kind of like drug-induced psychosis, which actually allowed her to stab herself. But then again, I just don't understand how you can stab yourself that many times and then stab yourself in the back of the neck. Also, post-mortem. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's possible, but that's just me. So again, the case is up for review in a couple weeks here from the date that I'm recording this. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. I think Hulu did a pretty decent job with the documentary. If you haven't watched it, please do. I just kind of brushed the surface of a lot of the facts, and there's a lot more obviously in the doc that I didn't cover. It's a good watch. It's a good thinker. There's a lot going on with this case. So here's just like what I can't shake. The blueberries in the sink, the door locked, the missing camera footage, the knife in her chest, plus 10 stab wounds to the back of the neck. Like suicide or the perfect cover up. I don't know. But one thing is certain, Ellen Greenberg's family definitely deserves real answers, and maybe they'll finally get them. We went from Tennessee death row to a Philadelphia apartment, to very different crimes. But one common thread, the pursuit of justice isn't always fair, and it isn't always simple. And not sometimes, it usually takes a really long time. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it doesn't come at all. But I'll leave you with this. Every headline, every case, every ruling is somebody's story. And behind every story is just still the truth waiting to be uncovered. All right, guys. I think we've covered everything for today. I hope this raised a lot of questions in your guys' heads too. And maybe everyone continuing to share Ellen's story will help uncover some truth, because I think there is still a lot that should have been done, or that still can be done in this case. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? What did you catch that I didn't catch? Watch that documentary. Again, it's on Hulu. Very, very compelling stuff. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Not that it was any type of enjoyable topics, but I'm glad that you're here with me. I'm glad that you continue to listen. And every week, I'm just ready to get you some new content. And I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it. You can follow me on YouTube, as always, at Mostly Accurate Podcast, Instagram at Mostly Accurate Podcast, Facebook at Mostly Accurate Podcast, anywhere you stream your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Castbox, Amazon, Pocket Casts, wherever that may be, you'll find me. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, love you. Bye. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The facts are fuzzy. Our stories and opinions are just that, stories and opinions, not meant to be taken as professional advice.